Welcome to the podcast. Today my guest is Phil Emmanuel or Matthes. Yes.
Yes, yes. So that's a bit of an in-joke now. That's my married name. Got married, oh my God, I should know this off the top of my head. 11 years ago.
I bet your husband knows.
No, I bet he doesn't. He's got it tattooed on his finger and I guarantee you he would not know. It's just such a long time. But yeah, 11 years ago. And yeah, it's, I guess... it's not a feminist thing or anything. Like a lot of women nowadays aren't taking their husband's last names and whatever. And I didn't really care either way, but it was nice for me to have a way to separate my personal mum, wife, whatever life, and then have a separate sort of identity as a musician and keep Emmanuel as not a stage name, but yeah, it was just a way to sort of be like, this way I can psychologically
you can be two completely different people.
Yeah, kind of. It's like if you put all the different tasks and identities and hats that I needed to wear on just one person, it's too much. But it's like if I'm two.
I've actually spoken about this on with other people on the podcast about the fact that it almost takes a split in your personality between looking after a business.
Yes.
And I would imagine, looking after a business, looking after a family, any of that, and being a musician, because the two things are almost diametrically opposed.
100%, yeah. And that's exactly how it is for me, and I like keeping it that way, keeping my two
worlds
separate as best I can anyway.
And helps being a Gemini.
Yes, I can't believe you picked that. Yeah.
Well, it was a stab in the dark, but I was quite surprised actually that it was true.
I know. When you said it, I was like, wait a minute, you've done your research, but no, it must be.
Well, I was around at the time when that happened.
Oh, when I was born?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. We go.
That seems strange to think about it in that concept. Let's move on from that. Anyway, so you grew up in Coffs Harbour.
Yes.
How was that?
It was nice. It's a really nice place to grow up, quiet, small sort of town and everything. There's enough there to do and beaches and all that sort of stuff. But what I just found is once I had grown up and had, greater aspirations and wanting to do more gigs and earn more money really, and just expand my reach, I guess, when I was trying to be an original artist, but also doing cover gigs and stuff like that. There's only a handful of venues down there. So, kind of as soon as I think we moved when I was like 21 or something like that.
When you say we?
Me and my husband.
Ah.
Yes.
So he's a Coffs Harbour person?
He's a Coffs boy as well. So we got together when we were like 16, 17.
Wow.
I know.
Did it take much convincing to get him to move, or was he keen to move too?
No, surprisingly he was keen to move as well. He's a builder, or at the time he was a carpenter, but he was very open to it, mainly because there's a lot more opportunities up here for him as well. Okay. So, but I mean, doing what he does, he can do it wherever. Anyway. People need stuff built everywhere. But yeah, we kind of, when we did move up, it was like, and we were only, as I said, 2021, and we owned a house in Coffs Harbour, and so our sort of thing was we'll rent that out for 6 months, 12 months or whatever, go up to the Gold Coast and suss it out. Yeah. And just if things work out, that's where we'll stay. Otherwise, we'll move back, and we haven't looked back.
What was the first gig you ever did?
I'm pretty sure the first public solo gig I ever did would have been at Sawtell RSL on like a Saturday night in this little corner, big stage in a little corner with this huge, really scary looking dance floor. And I would have been I don't think I was able to gig until I was 18 years old. Because they actually enforced the rules at that point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, to get into an RSL.
Because I think that it's still possible to perform if you're younger, if you're being supervised by an appropriate adult?
Yes, well, I wasn't. I wasn't supervised by anyone. So, so I'm pretty sure it was when I was 18. And yeah, it was like, I think it was like 8 till midnight or something. And I remember stressing, being like, holy crap, that is so long. Like, that is so much music.
Yeah.
And I think I would have played heaps of really bad originals. And then, cover songs and stuff like that. And I think I did a set even on like a keyboard and stuff. And honestly, a lot of friends and family would come out and watch and support and yeah, they were very kind.
You play keyboards?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that so you obviously took lessons? Or is it just something you decided to have a crack at yourself?
Yes. It's funny, I always loved the keyboard probably more than the guitar, but, being my dad's influence, the guitar was a lot easier to find lying around the house.
For anyone who doesn't know, Jess's dad was Phil Emmanuel.
Correct.
And her uncle is...
Tommy
Emmanuel.
Yes, that's right. But yeah, so I always liked the keyboard for whatever reason. But yeah, never got any lessons or anything like that. So sort of just figured it out. And that's what what I'm getting at is I'll bet it was terrible.
Well,
but I got paid my couple of $100 and yeah, I think that was my first gig and I remember it felt like a really big deal.
Yeah, particularly when you're doing it first, it would have been a certain amount of nerves. And
oh my God, so nervous. Yeah. So nervous.
I would imagine there'd be a little bit of extra weight carried because you're the daughter of Phil Emmanuel.
Yes. It's funny, the whole concept of a Nepo baby and the assumption that brings a lot of great opportunities and means that you're just naturally gifted and talented and are going to fall into all these amazing opportunities and stuff like that just because of who you're related to. And in my experience, I feel like it was more of a setback because, and that's no disrespect to my lineage or my dad or my uncle or anything like that, but it just meant that I had to almost prove myself a lot more because people did kind of prick their ears up and pay attention. Oh, Emmanuel, it's the next person, the next Emmanuel or whatever. But I wasn't a lead guitarist. I was just like a little singer-songwriter. I only played rhythm guitar because I wanted something to
back the vocals.
To back up my vocals. Yeah. So it was kind of people were expecting a certain thing, and then even if I was amazing at it, which I'm sure I wasn't, I was probably fine, but it would be more disappointing because I didn't deliver what they were expecting. Yeah, so it sort of made things a bit harder. It made people pay more attention.
So opened doors in some ways, but then
sort of,
made it harder. You you felt the weight of having to prove yourself.
Yeah, a lot, very much so. I think if I was a little shredder or something like that on electric guitar in the way that my dad was, maybe it would be more accepted or something.
They wanted a mini me.
Yeah, kind of. And it was like, well, there's already two of them. And Joe Robinson's over there doing, it's all...
Our guitar players, they're a dime a dozen.
No, no disrespect, but it was kind of like, well, that's not really what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it just meant that I would get, the people that would pay attention were not necessarily my demographic or the people who I, was going for, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, people were generally really, really kind, but it just, I don't know. I feel like it made things actually a bit harder.
How long did you gig for around Coffs Harbour?
3-4 years.
3-4 years. So you had 3 or 4 years under your belt before you came to the coast?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I was already a pretty well-established sort of soloist down there, but I'd never worked in a duo or a band or anything. When I was in Coffs, it was kind of like, there was maybe 3 other musos. So it was, it's just not a great... In terms of gigging...
Was Rowan Hems one of those musos?
Yeah. I don't think he was... he wasn't doing any solo gigs. He loves Coffs, yeah. And he's a legend. But again, I hadn't played in a band or anything like that. I just was doing my little solo thing. And I would go down to Nambucca and Maxville, Lismore, and sort of...
It's a bit of travelling involved. I
had a lot of really great opportunities opening for touring acts, like the McClymonts, Tony Childs, the Whitlams. That was really cool.
That would have been a good experience.
It was really great experience. Like, I look back on it now and I think I got a lot of opportunities that I wasn't good enough for.
Oh.
And I can say that now. At the time, I would have been like, no, I'm the greatest thing going around. Yeah, I can sort of look back on it. I mean, I haven't seen footage or anything like that, but just knowing how much I learnt in the next sort of 10 years, cutting my teeth on the Gold Coast and everything like that, and seeing the level of talent that's out there. Whereas in Coffs Harbour, I was a big fish in a small pond. So I got, every time there was a touring act coming through, I'd sort of, you can be the opening act, and it was awesome and it was such a great opportunity. But I don't think I deserved a lot of them. I think I got a lot of those opportunities because I was an Emmanuel and because I was one of the only people having a go.
Musicians who are passionate about what they do are generally their own worst critic.
Yes, absolutely. But that's the thing. At the time, I was not. That's how I know.
Oh,
that's how I know I wasn't a true muso yet. I was just like, this is fucking great. This is awesome. I'm killing it.
Well, that's cool.
And then a few years later, I was like, I was not. And what it took was moving. It wasn't so much the move, but it was starting to work with other musicians and seeing the calibre of talent that's out there, both other people who are doing solo work and going, oh my God, these guys are so much better than me, and then working with other bands and stuff like that and learning how to work with a band. And particularly one of the first things I did when I moved up was form a duo with Rachel Bostock.
Did you meet Rachel when you got up here, or did you know Rachel? Because I know I actually recorded Rachel with her brothers and
the Bostocks.
Yeah, the Bostocks down in Coffs Harbour.
Oh my God.
When Rachel was
a baby.
11?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, I met the Bostocks when I was a teenager. So when I was in like my mid-teens, through my dad, of course, because my dad loved Robbie, and they were living in Helensvale, and Rob had a studio in the backyard of his parents' place, and my dad would go and record a bunch of stuff with him. And yeah, I remember Dad was like, he'd be like, oh, Fab, he would call me Fab because I was fabulous, which is really nice when you think about it. He'd be like, oh, Fab, you got to record with this Robbie guy, got to record, because I was writing songs and I was like, I was always hassling, Dad, I want to record my songs. I want to record. And yeah, so there was a couple of times, I think he took me to some old bloke in, I don't know, Sunny Coast or something, and we recorded a couple of things, and it was terrible, I'm sure, but I probably thought it was amazing because you don't know. You only know what you know. And I remember him saying, oh, Fab, you got to record with Robbie. He's so great. He's amazing. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I started coming up to the Gold Coast to record, like we do a song a day or something like that. And yeah, I couldn't believe it when I actually like met Rob, that he was so like young, because everyone else who Dad sort of introduced me to in the industry, I mean, they're all super old, and that's okay. But yeah, it was kind of like, oh, like we could be
someone
friends.
You can relate to.
Yeah, yeah, it was really refreshing, and ended up recording like an entire album with Rob over a couple of years. And Rachel, that's how I obviously met Rachel, and she ended up playing some fiddle and doing some backing vocals and stuff like that. And I just remember thinking the Bostocks, I was just like, oh my God, like I couldn't believe.
What a talented family.
Yes, and I was like, this is so cool. I want to be in the Bostocks. I really did. I was like, I don't want to be a solo artist anymore. I want to be in the Bostocks, but I'm not a Bostock, so I can't. So I did the next best thing, which was record an album with the Bostocks essentially, but it just had my name on it. And yeah, so when we moved up, I already sort of knew a few people through Robbie and the Bostocks and everything, and I knew Johnny. I can't remember how I came on to Johnny, but
Johnny Martin.
Yeah, Johnny Martin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was like got heaps of duo gigs, and I was like, oh, I'd love to be in a duo. So I asked Rachel, she plays the violin and she's a singer. I was like, let's do a duo thing. And she wanted some more gigs. And I needed an extra singer because I was just blowing out my voice.
Okay.
Singing 4-hour gigs all the time, all by myself, and having never had any
Lessons?
singing lessons. So I needed someone to help. And then our very first gig together, I'll never forget, because we had to come up with 4 hours of material that we both knew. And so it was kind of like, and I knew some pretty popular stuff, but Rachel didn't really know a lot of popular stuff. She knew lots of really cool. She'd be like, do you know any like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani? And I'm like, no.
She was heavily into the Cause.
Yeah. So that was a thing. We did a lot of the Cause and the Dixie Chicks and stuff like that. So we were like, that's going to be our thing.
Yep.
Because nobody else was sort of doing that. So, and we both loved that music. So we were like, all right, that's going to be our thing, is where we're going to play like the more left of centre but still popular, musically enjoyable songs, you know. So we were like, we never want to get stuck just doing, you know, playing Brown Eyed Girl or something. We want to always be playing something super weird.
And have something unique,
yeah.
different to offer.
Yeah, that's right. And that was fun for us to do as well. So, but yeah, our first ever gig was a Thursday night at the Grand. I think it was like 7 till 11 p.m. or something. And because I was like because we were so nervous, you know, we practiced, rehearsed like for 2 days or something prior. And by the time the gig came around, I had no voice. Oh. Yes. So our very first gig, I had no voice, and I don't know what we did, but yeah, it's always funny to look back on now because I just go, oh God, like that would have been so terrible. But they had us back, and then we played.
Two gorgeous girls. Why wouldn't you have them
that's
back?
it. They're like, it's all right as long as I block my ears, it's great. No, it would have been fine, but it just meant, I would have still sung something through it. It would have been a lot of really husky, low harmonies and stuff like that, but I was used to that because.
Do you find that over time you develop enough of a repertoire where you can go, okay, if my voice is tired and I'm struggling, these are the songs that I can do?
Yeah, definitely.
And I'll stay away from maybe those ones over here.
Yes. It is hard when you got to do the 4 hours though. But I was very used to that because the reason that I was there, the reason that I was struggling in that way is I actually had nodules. So, yeah.
When did you find that out?
When I moved to the Gold Coast, I had been having problems with my voice ever since. And again, no surprise, I had never had any lessons. So I was just literally hearing songs on the radio, big Christina Aguilera, Whitney Houston, like whatever, like hearing these songs and being like, I can sing that, and just
belting the stuff out.
Belting it out.
But all in the wrong way.
Oh, absolutely in the wrong way. And then at gigs, just obviously just singing.
What happened to deal with the nodules?
Well, the funny thing is I saw 2 or 3 ENTs in coughs in that area, and they were all like, oh no, everything looks fine. I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's something wrong, because I would have a weekend where I'd have 3 gigs, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturday morning, I got no voice because I gigged on Friday night, you know, and I just couldn't understand why everybody else, like when I'd talk to Rachel, she'd be like, yeah, I've done 5 gigs this week. And I'm like, you can talk. What are you talking? Like, it just made no sense to me. So I'd gone to 2 or 3 different ENTs on the Gold Coast, in Coffs Harbour. And they all were just like, no, everything looks fine. And then I was recommended, I can't remember how I came across him, maybe it was by Google or something like that, but Dr. Broadhurst in Brisbane, who actually specialises in like singers. Before I even moved up to the Gold Coast, I drove all the way to Brisbane to be diagnosed with nodules, and it was really, really sad, but also like I was obviously devastated because, you know, I've ruined my voice. But then I was also super relieved because it was like,
now you know.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And there can be something done about it.
So what was done about it?
I had surgery. Mm-hmm. So I had an operation on my vocal cords to have the nodules removed, and then had some speech therapy and singing lessons, and then it was go time. Then it was like, yes, I realised everything I was doing wrong.
And now everything's good?
Yes. I ended up having the surgery again a few years later. It wasn't nodules this time. So what happened in my super heavy gigging all the time days, I was gigging in the Triple J's with Jim Cowling and Chris Goodridge, I think at that point. And we had this gig at Surfers Paradise Beer Garden and it was, in the middle of the night, crazy. It's like a bit of a club. And I remember that night, the smoke machine, the smoke in that room was insane. And there's two different types of smoke from
There's water-based and oil-based.
Yes. And one of them is really bad. I can't remember which one it is, but one of them is really bad for your throat.
Yeah, because there's different too also between something like a hazer and a smoke machine.
Well, I was whatever it was. I felt like I couldn't breathe, and every time I would go to sing, it felt like I had a throat full of soot.
Yeah,
and I complained, and I was like, guys, this is nobody else noticing this? It just was horrible, and just one night of trying to sing through that. The next day I woke up and had no voice whatsoever, and I was kind of like, that hadn't happened. And I was so worried because, I'd only had the nodules removed a couple of years prior, and I was like, I've been doing everything right. I've been, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do anything. And so I went and had a checkup with my surgeon, Dr. Broadhurst, and he's like, okay, good news is your vocal cords look beautiful, so you've obviously been doing the right thing. The bad news is you have a polyp on your vocal cords. And I was like, what the hell? Is that like cancer or whatever? And he's like, no, it's caused by one traumatic moment.
Oh, wow.
So and I think who else had one? Adele had a vocal cord polyp. And it's just literally he's like, it's normally caused by people if they go to a footy game and they scream or something. So it's not a long-term injury. It's like a bang, something happens. And I told him, I was like, I think it was on Saturday night I did this. And he's like, that's exactly, that's exactly when it happened. So damn it, you beer garden. So I had to have the surgery again because that was the thing. Even though it was only a smaller issue, it was kind of like the polyp itself could burst at any time. And that would be
And if it's on your vocal cords, it's it's not a good thing.
So I was always really, while I waited to have that surgery again, because the surgery was $4,000 or $5,000 each time.
Wow.
And when you're a musician, that's a lot of money. And it's not just the $4,000 or $5,000 for the surgery.
You've got to take time off.
It's the time off.
Because you're not making money in the time off.
Yes, and I was a full-time musician. That sucked. However, good segue, that is how I took up DJing. Because I was going to have all that time off and not earn any money.
So that's where the DJing came in?
That's where DJing came in. So
is that something that was suggested to you or something you came up on?
No, I thought DJing was so stupid, and I was like, oh my God, all they do is press play. And I was very much like, this is a bad idea. But I think because I was gigging regularly at the Grand.
Yep.
I think I had a residency because I was playing there at least once a month with the Daisy Dukes, and then at least once a month with the Triple J's, and then whoever else needed me to fill in there. And I was just there all the time. I think I was lamenting to somebody about how stressed I was, that I booked this in and it's going to cost all this money, and I'm so stressed about having the time off, and I had to cancel some gigs there. And I can't even remember who it was, but someone was like, well, why don't you learn to DJ? And they had a DJ playing there each weekend, and I was like, nah, come on, acted like I was so above it or whatever. But then I was like, sort of checked out what he was doing, and I was like, yeah, I could do that. And the funny thing was, the type of DJing that they did at the Grand was not really actually DJing, which is what I learned later. So it was just like a mixer, and then it was just nightlife on the computer. So you would just type in whatever song you want, because also the video clip would, you're familiar with the system.
Yeah.
But then you had to essentially just turn one song. He didn't teach me about keys or BPMs or anything like that. But the first couple of times I sort of learnt how to do it, And again, it wasn't real DJing, but I was like, this is actually pretty fun. And like, just because I was already an established musician and I was always so interested in music and what the hot hits were at the time. And I used to collect CDs, and like I had hundreds and hundreds. And every week I would get my $20 allowance and go to Sanity. Yeah. And I would either buy an album or like 4 singles every week.
So you had a back catalogue?
Massive back catalogue. I mean, we weren't mixing with CDs, but it was like I have such a great understanding of what songs work and what was popular when, and I can look out and sort of view an audience and figure out what they're going to like, just based on their age group and stuff like that. So, I kind of enjoyed it, and I was like, maybe I will learn how to do this properly. So I bought a controller and like sort of, did some YouTube and started building a catalogue of music that I could actually use away from the grand, and figured out how to do all that. Actually paid to rent a little studio space with some CDJs so I could just learn, like teach myself and learn.
Spend the time.
Just spend some
time.
I actually paid somebody to teach me, I think at BJ's. And I was like, look, just treat me like I'm an idiot and explain it to me. And literally within like a month, I was getting hit up for gigs, like crazy gigs, big corporate gigs, whereas, lots of money, and then club gigs and stuff like that, which are very little money but more fun. Again, even though I wasn't that good, just learnt by doing. And and I kind of was like, oh, there is actually a bit of an art to this. It's not just pressing play. And look, there are DJs out there, particularly in the corporate or wedding scene, who do just press play and put that song on and whatever, and you could just put Spotify on shuffle if you want to.
It's a funny thing though too. I mean, you having done a few weddings would realise this too, that I find it more often than not now that the bride and groom will turn up and go, here's my Spotify playlist. Can you, like, they've hired a DJ, but here's my list.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I do not DJ weddings anymore. Yeah. Because I don't DJ weddings anymore for that exact reason, because you've hired somebody to do a job. It's like, going up to a chef and telling them all the ingredients that you want in something that the chef has curated themselves, But it was interesting how much I actually quite enjoyed learning how to beat match and understanding keys, and just sort of, and not peaking too early and playing the right songs at the right time. And there was actually something to it.
You play lots of Max Martin because it's always in the key of G.
Yes, true. It's always, probably not in G major, probably more E minor. A lot more minor.
Still G.
Yeah, exactly.
Relative.
Exactly. But I'm just saying, like,
relatively speaking,
there was more like minor sounds more aggressive and cool and dancey.
Okay.
And then when it gets to the G, that's when it's like that's the
resolution.
That's the lift. Yeah, that's the resolution. Yeah. So I don't know. That's when the beat drops or whatever. But anyway, interesting observation. I wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, it's just something that I don't know this myself. It was something that I saw or heard or read, or somehow osmosis got into me.
There's not near as many 128-ish BPM songs as there were, say, 10 to 15 years ago, during like the party rock anthem, TikTok on the clock sort of.
Is it still a typical thing where like the R&B stuff is around 100 and 105? Yeah,
generally. But again, there's also not a great, and it's cool to know these things off.
And it's not a hard and fast rule?
No, it's definitely not a hard and fast rule. I mean, that being said, like Pony by Genuine, that's like 71 or something.
Okay, so it's quite slow.
It's quite slow. So it's, R&B definitely tends to be on the slower side because they're, that's love making music. And then your party rock anthem stuff is 130 BPM. And that stuff peaked. I think it's a lot to do with society as well. So like when R&B was really big in like the 90s and the early 2000s and stuff, it was more, people didn't, as far as I know anyway. I was a kid, but like the club influence wasn't quite the same.
No, I mean the 90s. I mean,
and it's to do with
I was gigging a lot
the Bush
in the 90s.
era and all that stuff too.
Well, I mean, the 90s was
bands.
It was a lot of bands.
Yeah.
But there was still quite a bit of diversity in the
the 90s is a great time for music.
Well, no, I mean grunge came in the 90s and sort of destroyed the whole idea of a guitar solo, which was depressing.
Yes. yeah.
But there was a lot of diversity. On radio, you would have Nirvana, but then you'd also have MC Hammer. But you'd have and that stuff all coexisted together.
Yep.
Whereas moving on, when you get into the 2000s and a bit beyond, music became a lot more homogenised.
Yeah, I think it was just because the music industry after everything went digital, first with like illegal downloads and then eventually with Spotify and stuff like that. I mean, this is my understanding, and this is not old man yelling at a cloud. I'm not there yet. But my understanding of it is, my understanding of it is the way it seems to me is trend chasing. So recognizing that a certain sound or a certain vibe or a certain genre is doing really, really well. So try and replicate that because you know that will be a big hit. Whereas back in like the 80s and 90s with your Fleetwood Mac and your Nirvana, those people, like, nobody was chasing any trends. It was just kind of, well, this is the music I want to make.
People were trying to be a lot more unique, but I think it was because of bands. There were a lot more bands.
There's a lot more collaboration.
Well, yeah, when you have a group of people in a band, they're all, to some degree,
they all bring their own separate thing,
and they're all fighting for their own thing, and it becomes So it's very hard to make something.
Yeah.
I don't know, generic, I guess the word would be.
No,
so everything was sort of quite unique.
If one band suddenly does really, really well on TikTok or something next year and has a big hit single, we will see lots more bands. I've said it here. Quote me on that.
I know that there is a trend for more songs to have guitar in them now. There was a while there where you could look at the top 100 songs and none of them had guitar in them.
Yeah.
So they say Taylor Swift has a big influence on that.
No, I disagree. Taylor. I mean, I don't remember the last Taylor Swift song I heard that had a guitar in it.
Okay, but she plays a guitar live.
That's all right.
I know the guitar sales she's had a bit of an influence.
Oh, she definitely would have. I'm hoping that there are a lot of young girls out there who see what she does and you know that she plays the piano, that she plays the guitar, and they go, yes, I can do that, because there are next to no female musicians. There's models. A million singers. There's a million female singers, but to find actual female musicians, it's really hard.
Someone
and that's really sad.
An Alicia Keys or
oh my God, incredible.
Yeah.
And that's something that should be studied, to be honest. And it is studied actually, but it's hard to communicate, because I actually did a Facebook post about it once that went semi-viral, basically just saying, because I'll get asked all the time by fellow singers and stuff like that. They'll be like, oh, it's so cool that you play guitar. Like, oh, that's so awesome. And they always say, I wanted to, oh, I wish I played, I wish I picked it up when I was a kid. And I just want to be like, well, why didn't you? You know, why is it that girls pick up, might do a few piano lessons or something when they're a kid, and then they lose interest, or they pick up the guitar or whatever and they do lose interest. But like dudes don't. Dudes stick with it.
It's a funny one.
I could be a bad example because, as I said, I only played the guitar to back up my singing. But yeah, I certainly
it's a fair reason to do it though.
Yeah, but I still really enjoy playing, and particularly when I got older and started playing with bands, I was like, this is sick. Like this is cool. Yeah. But there was no opportunity to do that until I was a bit older. So it's sad that there aren't more female musicians. You've
been doing songwriting since you very first started.
Yes, since I was way too young to be writing songs. Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's how you learn.
Yeah,
by experience.
And you've done a few collaboration things that have had some success.
Yes, I think so.
How did that sort of come about?
It's funny. Well, when I was younger, I reckon the first good song I ever wrote. I would have been like 13 years old, and ended up recording that song with Robbie. Recorded a whole album with Rob, and it's funny. If I were to listen back to that album now, I would tear it apart so bad. But I didn't know how to self-edit. I didn't know how to sort of write and then go, okay, well, Jessie, you've kind of said the same thing 30 different ways, and that's verse 1. You haven't gotten anywhere. You just like I just overwrote, and I never edited myself, and I never went, well, what's like a catchier way to sing this or say this? Like I didn't learn about the word economy. So the word economy is how to say the most by saying the least. Because it's a pop song or a country song or whatever, and you're trying to tell a story. You're not just explaining every vapid little feeling that you have, which is what a 13-year-old does who writes a song. But yeah, so I wrote quite constantly throughout my teen years, particularly through my first and only breakup with my boyfriend when I was 14 or something, because it was the end of the world. Like we were together for nearly a whole year. So when we broke up, my goodness, that was my Taylor Swift era, that one. And then the hard thing is got a bit older and in a steady relationship with my husband Kurt, and we'd been together for a few years, and it was kind of like, it's nothing really interesting to write about. Like it's only. Well, just, like...
Because you're writing about life experiences?
Yeah, and I'm like, can people really relate to, like everything's kind of just fine, and I love this bloke and he loves me, and we're just having a go at the Aussie dream / trying to be a musician. And, yeah, so I just kind of stopped when I was like 22 or something. Just lost the passion for it also, and I wanted to...
Just didn't feel inspired? Didn't
feel inspired, and I think I had a few experiences that put me off the original music scene.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd tried, I'd done the Star Maker competition in Tamworth, gone to Tamworth, and just tried to do all those things that you're supposed to do to try and further yourself, and just realised that it was so much unnecessary hard work. And I don't mean that in, it's hard work, so it's too hard, I don't want to do it. I mean, it's when I went and competed, for example, in like the Star Maker, it was too expensive to get any accommodation. So we slept in the car and like did a couple of gigs and stuff like that, and like you don't get paid. And
it's quite hot in Tamworth that time.
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is, especially in the back of a Subaru Forester. Yeah, and and I know people say, oh, well, it's hard work and stuff like that, but it's not just that. It's also the playing the game type of stuff that you have to do, and
a bit of politics involved.
So much politics, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but just kind of every step forward that I made made me want to pull back. And also when I went on one of the shows on telly, wasn't The Voice, Australia's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
That whole experience traumatized me. I had made it clear that like I wanted to be, it was supposed to be about my songwriting more than anything. So I kind of got rushed through the process. So they came to Coffs Harbour and they're like, yeah, we're going to do auditions. And then once you've done that audition, you go to the next audition, and then we'll fly you to Sydney and da-da-da-da. Anyway, when I turned up to the Coffs Harbour audition, ready to audition, someone was like, are you Jessie Emmanuel? And I was like, yep. And they're like, come in. And like, I was like, oh my God, rushed in front of hundreds of people who were lining up and maybe been there all day. And I just got brought into some room similar to this, and there was like 3 people, not the TV judges or anything, but just like, producers or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they asked me a few random questions, one of which was, if you get through on this show, will your uncle come and watch? Oh. In other words, can we use you to get Tommy Emmanuel to appear. And I was just like, well, no. I haven't spoken to him in a couple of years. Like, I'm not going to be like, hey, I'm on this TV show. Like, no. And I was also just like, I really don't want that to be a thing. And either way, I did say no and like, you know, and then they were like, okay, no problem. Got contacted the next day. Yeah, you're through. Come on, you know. And I didn't even sing. I didn't do anything. I didn't play for anybody. But they're like, yeah, come on. But naive, silly little 21-year-old me is like, this is it. I'm going to be a star. Like, they've seen videos of me, so they must know. And I think this is kind of the moment where I realised that I wasn't as good as I thought I was, and that I had so much of a way to go. But at the same time, I had been brought down so hard. And I was just too naive and too young to really compute that. But performed on the show, the way this is the stuff that you don't see. But when I'm on the show, I go out there, I'm playing acoustic guitar and singing into a mic and everything. And there's no fallback on the stage. You're just on this big stage in front of hundreds of people in an audience. No fallback, no nothing. So all I can hear is me a second later coming back. It's the worst sound you'll ever hear, right? And I just remember as soon as I started playing, like, what the hell? Like, what is that? So you couldn't really hear anything. Played my song and everything. And this particular song, I should have shortened it, but I didn't know what the process was going to be. So I played the entire song because it's one of those songs that has a bit of a story, you know, a couple of verses. And it was a country song. And it has a key change in the middle. Anyway, when it makes it to air, they played the first like 20 seconds and then the last 20 seconds. So
the key change didn't make sense.
I didn't even think the key change was on telly. I think it just was like this part and then this part. And I was just like, I just remember seeing it on TV and being like, that sounded terrible. And it was terrible. But yeah, I wouldn't have done that if I knew. But how do you know? But the whole experience with Australia's Got Talent was just the experience of what they put on air and stuff, the way they cut and edit things. Because there was even a moment when someone said something, like one of the judges, I think it was Carl Sandilands or something, who has no business judging anything. He said something about, you know, my Emmanuel heritage and whatever. And I actually was just like, I tried to say, look, oh yeah, it was, why are you here when you have a famous family? Like, what are you doing? You should just automatically be famous and successful because you're related to somebody who's famous and successful. Meanwhile, I don't know if you're super familiar with my dad's success, but it wasn't that great. I was probably earning more money than him at that point.
He wasn't the greatest of businessmen. He was a phenomenally talented human being.
100%.
Phenomenally talented.
100%. No question.
Terrible business person.
Terrible business person, and just didn't want to follow any of the rules. And
no.
And I know I've said that before about playing the game and stuff like that, but there's playing the game as in sucking up to people, and then there's following the rules as in like turning up before the gig starts.
And playing, possibly being sober.
Yes, and being sober and you know, yes, we'll get into that. But I just remember being asked, well, what are you doing here if you're an Emmanuel? And I said something like, oh, well, I'm trying to make it on my own. I'm trying not to lean on that. And just because you're related to somebody famous doesn't mean. And in that moment, nothing happened. When it was on TV, there was a close-up of Danny Minogue, right? And then somebody inserted like, ooh, like I was having a go at Danny Minogue because she's related to Kylie Minogue.
Well, they're trying to make a story out of...
But this didn't happen. Yeah. I was like watching it. I'm like, that didn't happen. It was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like shit answer, but all right. And then... I just couldn't believe it.
It's that thing. They're manufacturing a storyline.
Yes, exactly. And I just remember. But then I tried to pull out.
Yeah.
After that happened, I wrote them an email and I was like, I'm done. I don't, no thank you. And they're like, oh, but you got through to the next. And I'm like, no. And then they're like, you're contractually obliged. Because I had signed like a contract or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, like fucking all right. So then I have to go back and everybody hates me. because I've tried to pull out.
Oh, no.
And then had another performance, and it was okay again, but it was a full band performance, and we'd rehearsed with like in-ears. It was my first time ever using in-ears, and we performed the song once, and in-ears didn't work at all. Like all of a sudden, like I just didn't have anything. Oh no, I think I could hear, like, there was like, I could hear something, but my vocal was not in there. And I didn't know what to do. So I was just like, whatever, like, let's get through this. But it was a full band, really red hot band too, like gun musos from Melbourne and stuff like that. And did that performance. And then I was just like, oh my God, I hope that was okay. Then, because I pulled one of my ears out thinking, oh, maybe I'll be able to hear something. But no, there was no wedges on stage either because we're all on ears. So again, just sounded like a dumpster fire. The judges literally were like, I think there was something wrong with the sound then. Can we do that again? And I was like, oh, thank God. Like, so it sounded like shit to them too. So I was like, great. So I had another chance. And I was like, while we're dicking around, my vocals, like, I don't have it. And we fixed it, right? Performed it a second time. And it was still pretty shaky because I was really rocked by that and really nervous and whatever, but it was much better. Like I could hear myself. And then the judges responded and, it still wasn't, it wasn't, oh my God, stop the competition, she's won. It was, okay, yeah, cool, that was pretty good, blah, blah, blah. And then when it aired on TV, guess which version they showed. No. I know because I had one of the in-ears out.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? So they showed the first performance with the judge's second response, and I was just like, And anyway, I got voted out at that point. But like I wasn't posting about it. I wasn't sharing it. I just, I was like, please bury this. And that was another reason for me moving to the Gold Coast and getting married immediately and adopting a different name. So many people, because when I moved to the Gold Coast, I didn't sort of jump into the serious gigging scene for maybe a year or so, like, took a while because of my vocal cords and all that sort of stuff and getting settled in and getting to know people. And 90% of people I worked with didn't even know that I was an Emmanuel. And sounds really bad, but I loved it. Because it was like when people were impressed with me, they were just fucking impressed with me.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, you're really good. Oh, it's in the genes. It was, oh, you're really good. You must be really good. Like it must be you.
For no other reason than.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing because now I've got young children who are musical as well, and they are both really good. But they're not really good because they're related to me. They're really good because they get lessons and they practice and they're passionate about it and they love doing it. And yes, my part of that is that I pay for it and I encourage them and they're exposed to it. And I think there's something valuable in the fact that they can see that this can be a job. This can be a living. Because most people have no concept that being a musician can be a job, And I think that's probably
Well, the household that I grew up in, that was the case. It was
and you're just kind of like this is a job. Like I've had real jobs. I have worked some hospitality, some retail. I used to manage like clothing stores, and my last job was at the bank. Worked at the bank, and I was doing really, really well. And I was training up to be like a mortgage lender. And I was doing at the same time I was still gigging on the weekends and stuff like that. And I was only part-time, so I was doing like, I think I was working 5-hour days. And I enjoyed it. But I then went on maternity leave because I was pregnant. Went on maternity leave and, was on maternity leave first it was going to be 3 months or 6 months or whatever. First for a few months. And then after, of course, the horror of actually giving birth and the first few weeks passes, you're like, well, I want to get back into it. I was like, I could go out and I could go do some more gigs. So I started doing more gigs. And by the time I was due to come back to my actual job, and they offered me full time, they were like, hey, we need you back. We'll put you on full time. I was making more money as a musician, and I was working 3-4 nights a week while my kids were asleep versus going and doing a full-time Monday to Friday job where I'd have to put my kid in daycare and cost me however much per day and never see her.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's a no-brainer. And I'm so grateful like that I had the opportunity to see that, because most people that I sort of meet or speak to who aren't musicians, and it used to be I used to only know musos because that's all I did, but now that I'm like a mum and the kids have parents and stuff like that, and with Kurt's business and stuff like that, you meet civilians, people who aren't in the music industry, and they don't understand, and they're kind of like, oh, that's your job, and you're like, hell yeah, that's my job.
Yeah.
Like, and I left a real like corporate job to be a musician because I was making more money.
Yeah.
This is pre-COVID, obviously, but
Yeah, COVID certainly changed a few things.
yeah, that was fun.
So what did you do over COVID?
Freaked out. But it was a good, like now that I look back on it, it was a really good reset for me because prior to COVID, I was gigging 4 nights a week or something, and it was like I couldn't deal with looking at my calendar and seeing a Thursday, Friday, Saturday or a Sunday night off. I'd just be like, oh my God. Like
I can remember being like that.
Yeah, and you'd just be like, oh my God, I can't do that. That's a night I could be making money, I could be working. And
Nobody wants me anymore. I've got one night off.
No, but the thing is, I would reach out to an agent or something and be like, hey, have you got any gig that? And they go, yeah, cool. And I would book something like that and it'd be great. And I'd be like, oh, thank God.
It is a funny psychological thing. This is the thing I think people who have normal jobs don't realise.
Yeah.
When you're a musician, you're constantly applying for work.
Yes,
It's like
true.
constantly applying for a new job.
Yep.
Every day.
Yes, exactly right. That's such a good way of putting it. And you have to keep it up. You have to keep, but I'd gotten to a point though where, and I'm sure you're the same, where the offers do just sort of steadily just, you get an email and it's from an agent and it's like, hey, want to lock in these dates for da-da-da-da-da-da. And enough of that was happening just with the Daisy Dukes, with being solo, with working in various bands, with doing weddings, with DJing. Like because I was doing so many things, it was very easy.
Would you say that the being versatile and doing the different things really, that's
Oh,
what
God,
sort of
yeah.
kept you alive
Definitely.
and kept you afloat?
Absolutely. It kept me afloat. It meant
But also, I guess, because you're doing different things, it means you're not getting bored doing one thing too.
that was the other thing I was going to say. Yeah, variety is the spice of life. I think if I was only doing one thing, I would get so sick of it. Like if you're doing this exact same thing 3-4 nights a week.
I'm a bit like that with solo gigs.
Yeah, I
It's like
hate
I
doing solo
enjoy doing a
gigs now.
solo gig, but if I was to do only solo gigs, I think I would go nuts.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And yeah, I don't do too many solo gigs pretty much these days for that exact reason. And also it's nice to have the company.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it must be wonderful. Like, would you consider, I would say you and Rachel are like quite close friends.
Yeah, she's my best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like working with someone who's your best friend, that must be
It makes it very fun.
Yeah.
I mean, having worked together now for like 13, 14 years, we have a weird affinity. We have this weird, like, I don't know, we know where the other person's going and we work really well together. If she's improvising or something and I'm just playing the rhythm or something, I know where she's going with it and I'll play something a little bit different to enhance what I think she's going to do. And it's really, really cool. It's so much more musically fun, I guess. It was easy for me to fill up a calendar. I was putting it first. So if my kids were they had a concert or they had a this or they had whatever, I wasn't able to go because I was already booked 6 months in advance. Mm-hmm. COVID was a good reset for that because once we eased back in, COVID is also when we launched Hinterland.
Which is an original band.
Yes.
With Robbie
Robbie and
Bostock
Rachel, yes.
Great band, great songs.
Great, yep, good times. Shit time to do it, but...
Because it would have been a great time to be songwriting though.
It was, yeah. So it was kind of, it did work out well in that way because we had so much more free time.
And did Robbie record all that stuff?
Not all our stuff. So our first few songs we went to Stuart in Brisbane, who has more of like a pop sensibility. with his recording, and he's a close friend of mine. But he was great because he pushes you so hard as a writer. Like you'll bring him, like if I brought him a song and I was like, here's the song, he would go, great. Go and write alternate lines for every single line. I want 3 versions of the exact same song. And then I want you to imagine that chorus but in a minor key, and how would you change? Like, and he just makes you like, he changed my view of like songwriting and music, because I used to look at it and be like, well, I've written this song and this is the song. And what he kind of instilled in me creatively was like, you can bring me a product, but like, is it the best that it could possibly be? And it was funny how much that it was hard at first, because you do as a writer become so attached to, especially if it's a song that you've been singing for ages a certain way.
Yeah, but it's also, it's one of those things. Here's something I created.
Here's my baby, like, and he goes, your baby's ugly.
I was going to say, there's a certain amount of ego attached.
Yeah, 100%. And you just had to let that go. And it was good for me also because I'd never written with other people before. So working with Rachel and Rob, there was a lot of like, hey, this is what I think it should be. And then that person going, I don't know. And you had to just be like, okay, my baby's ugly. No, but you know, it makes you learn to be a collaborator in that way, and in the end, you have to go, well, what serves the song best?
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool, and I learned so much by working with all those different people doing that. And yeah, so it was like,
and become a better songwriter in the process.
Yeah, exactly. Becoming a better musician in the process as well, because it wasn't always just the lyrics too. It was like, oh, how do we spice up these chords? Because one of the things that we all collectively hated was, is this just a 4-chord pop song? You know, is this in the key of G and C, E minor, D, bang? Like it
Job
was
done.
Look, there is a beauty in taking some of those tired old chord structures and rhythms and stuff like that and making it new and exciting, doing something, but that's so bloody hard. It's been done a gazillion times. So, and not that, you know, some of I think our first ever single, most of it is only it's just B and E over and over again.
Wow.
It's really just 2, but it's like, it's what you do with them, you know?
Yes, that's very true.
And it does feature like 2 modulations, so it gets spicy. But you know what I mean? Like there's something there for everybody. But yeah, so it was all about how do we push this song as far as we possibly can. And because all 3 of us have such huge, wide, weird musical tastes, we were all able to sort of bring that in. And we didn't really care, particularly in the beginning, if we were adhering to, you know, will the country music industry enjoy this? Will people like? We were just like, I like it, so it's good, you know. And yeah, so that's kind of how
it basically
we did.
developed as its own stylistic thing.
Yeah,
it wasn't necessarily pop. It wasn't necessarily country.
It was just hinterland. It was us, and that's why we stood out, I think, for a while there, because we were making something that sounded so different to what everybody else was doing. And it was really, really fun. It was really, really awesome. And we had some we had some big hits. We had a couple of number 1 singles, quite a few top 10s on like national radio, and got to play some amazing shows. It was super fun. But like most things in the music industry, particularly if you're a band, it's got to come to an end. It just...
Did chart success mean any monetary success? Well, I only asked the question because the general public would probably think that, oh, I had a number 1 hit, you must be rich.
Okay, so the way it works is you've made a good song, it must be a hit, right? And then you move to that next. So it's just the bar being raised constantly, and the next hurdle you have to jump through, and it never stops. So it's, have you made a good song? Yes, I have. Oh, well, it'll be a hit then. So then you're here. Oh, it does become a hit. Well, will it translate to like tickets to people actually wanting to come and see your show. Oh, yes, it will. Actually, people will come. And there's just so many things that have to happen in order for you to make a dime, basically. Collectively, co-writes I've had, songs that I've written, I got one song that's, I think, on its way to 5 million streams.
Mm-hmm.
I've made fuck all, right? And like other songs, I think altogether I must be close to 10 million or something. I don't know. And look, yeah, you get your APRA, a few dollars here and there every couple of months, whatever. And that's fine. Like that's not what it's about though.
Mm.
But
there's no real money in that per se.
Yeah, no. The way it works is a song isn't a building block. A hit song even isn't a building block to earn money or anything like that. It's about having several hit songs to build up your fan base and your bankability so that
people will come and see you at a live show.
People will come see you at a live show. And there were so many times when we had the number one song in like Tamworth, or our song was top 5 in the country and had a few 100,000 streams or something, and shit was like popping off, like looks really good. And then we'd be like, hey, we're going to put on like a show and would you guys come? And then we'd have to cancel the show because nobody was going to come.
It costs money to sell tickets. It costs money for, like say, PA and lighting. And you got to, there's a lot of costs to cover.
Yes, exactly. That's before the musicians get paid.
What about video clips? Because I know you've done a couple of video clips.
Yes.
Is that one of those things? How did you go about doing that and doing it obviously?
During COVID.
Well, you would have had to do it on I'm thinking about the amount of money spent, because I know that video clips can be quite expensive.
We were very lucky that a certain very talented gentleman named Nigel Jones was willing to help us out in the beginning because he was also out of work. So at the beginning of COVID, when we decided to launch with our first 3 singles in 6 months, back then people still made music videos. And it's crazy to say now because it was only 4 years ago. People just really aren't making music videos anymore. They're just doing the little TikTok, hey, here's my song, and it's a snippet or whatever. And it's great that people can, like, that gets just the same exposure as an actual music video. But we wanted to actually come out on the scene and be like, here's something visually
with
exciting.
With CMT and stuff like that. So video, like there would be some sort of motivation to do a video clip still, wouldn't there?
If there is, I don't know about it. No, it's more for YouTube and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because CMC, the country music channel, folded in literally like when we started.
Oh.
So it was bought out by CMT, which is the American company. So, there's not a great deal of, exposure for, and look, their viewership is really low from what I've heard. But yeah, it's more about marketing on online, YouTube and stuff like that, and Facebook and whatever. But yeah, we wanted to make music videos, and I guess with our first music video, everybody was out of work. It was May of 2020. We'd already put the song out. And we were just kind of thinking, oh, here's our song, like, hope you guys like it. But it like got added to the Australian like country music Spotify playlist, started getting like, I think we got, 10,000 streams in the first week. And I was like, oh my God. Because it was just the playlist. And people just like, we got heaps of really good response, and like country radio in Australia, I think it ended up getting into the top 10, which is incredible for your first ever song. Nigel, who I'd only met once before, he's a muso as well, but he also makes videos, works in, movies and whatever else. He's out of work too. And he contacted me. He's like, hey, I really like your song, love what you guys are doing. He's like, if you ever want to make a video or anything, please hit me up. And I'm like, to be honest, I was like, Like, I don't know. And I was like, look, and at this point there wasn't even like the COVID, what was it, JobKeeper or anything like that.
Oh,
so
okay.
There was no money. It was, no, we're all just sitting here eating toast. Like, yeah, we just had no idea how it was going to actually work out. And Nigel, yeah, he was like, let's just do something. I want to be a part of this. And I think we did end up paying him, but it was like all we could afford, like out of our own pockets, like a few $100, honestly. And then everything was, we shot it in my backyard. We hired a stage and lighting and all this gear from Dreamweavers, because again, and
That's right, because Johnny Martin said he was there doing lights.
yes, Johnny Martin came and did the lights. Like, it was like
He's everywhere, that man.
everybody. Yeah, that's right. But it was kind of like everybody else was like sitting there twiddling their thumbs, and we couldn't do anything. So it was like, yeah, everyone was like, let's get together and make something.
Yeah.
And there's something so beautiful about that when I sort of think about that now. And we just made this, again, single location, just us on a stage in my backyard video. And yeah, got added to CMT, and I think we got 10,000 views in 24 hours on Facebook.
Wow.
So it was massive.
That's
great. Because nobody was doing anything. Nobody was doing anything.
It was the perfect opportunity.
It was like the perfect time. It was like, we can flood the market because there is no market.
Yeah.
The idea was, well, hopefully this will be really good exposure for Nigel too.
Yeah.
So all of us are sort of, just trying to do something, make something out of nothing.
Make something happen, yeah.
Yeah, and then we made another 2 videos over the next 6 months. Again, like work was sort of trickling back at that point, like towards later in the year.
The one that you went climbing out
yes
on rocks along,
Yes.
and like I remember seeing, was it?
There's like drone footage as well.
Was it
I think it's like
either Robbie or
Ipswich
Rachel
something.
complaining about having to trek for 2.5 hours up into?
Yes,
Like it was quite a.
It was massive,
It was
and we
quite
had
a
to
thing.
we had to ride bikes. So we had to ride bikes all through the bush. And my bike, the bike I had, kept like every time we hit like sand, it would just stop. So I'd be like pedaling and I'm not super fit, but like, yeah, we're not all bike riders. But yeah, so Nigel was like, yeah, it was so worth it.
So
like
who organised the location?
Nigel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we were just like, Nigel, what do you think? Like, because for him, we're
Yeah.
like, we weren't in any position to be telling him,
Yeah.
hey, we're paying you a ton of money, so you just do what we think. We were just like, we sent him the song and we're like, what do you think? And that video went ballistic, too much so because we ended up with 3 or 4 locations, one of which was that one. We shot for like nearly a week. And we ended up shooting in Dreamweavers as well. And
Yep.
that scene looks incredible, and it just looks so high end and incredible. And it's so cool to look back on now. But yeah, honestly, it was only because it was COVID. Nobody was doing anything. So we got away with making really expensive looking videos off of lots of people doing favors for us.
Wow.
Which is really nice.
Yeah.
We did pay some
I
people.
mean, it's
but
one of those
bugger
things too
all,
where
like-
it's like, I mean, it's at that particular point in time,
it was like a community
Yeah,
thing.
that's what I was
It
gonna
was like
say. There
everyone
was-
was like, you're keeping the dream alive. I want to
Yeah.
be a part of it,
Yeah.
and everyone was sort of wrapping their arms around each other. And even like, say, Stuart, for example, our producer, once we got to a point, we'd recorded those first couple of songs, and then I had another song which ended up being our 3rd single, and I had just written it, and I was like, I really want to record this song, but we have no money. And yeah, so Stuart ended up doing like a discount for us because he was like, well, I'm not quite as busy. So yeah, it was good in that way because, as I said, we could flood the market, so to speak, because most other like big name artists, American artists and stuff like that, all of them just stopped doing
shut
anything.
down, yeah.
They just went, too hard, let's have a break. So it was easier for smaller artists to jump in and fill that hole.
Yeah.
And we did that for a while, and then everything sort of started getting back up, and we're thinking, all right, now we're primed. Like, we've just like built this up. But it was still so hard to get people to come out and do things, and we got booked for so many festivals that would then get cancelled because, not enough tickets were sold or the borders would shut and whatever. And it was it got to a point where there were just so many disappointments and, it was really, really sad.
Too hard to keep the dream alive.
Yeah, well, also just because we're all older and none of us suffer from lead singer's disease. None of us want to be a star. Like I didn't want to be a star. I was like, if I do write and be, like, I can only be in a band. Like I cannot do this by myself. And even like, it just made me so uncomfortable to even be identified as the lead singer of the band or anything like that. None of us had that real drive to be like, yeah, we're going to be stars. We're going to be this. We're just kind of like, this is fine. So perhaps that was a certain amount of motivation that you really need in the music industry, the original music scene, because how can you compete with those people who have that?
Yeah.
How can you guys, me and Rachel and Rob might be the most talented band in the world, and we might be up against some other artists who are far less talented. However, they have the drive and the passion and they will put in the work. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's also one of those things too where
that was an extreme, by the way. We weren't the most talented band in the world, but you know what I mean. It's not all about.
It's one of those things too where people have the things that they like and they don't like, and so I think there's an audience for everyone. It's one of the things that I think I miss about the 80s, 90s thing where there is a lack of diversity. It would seemingly be a lack of diversity now if you look at what's in media. I think it's still out there. It's just you've got to look a bit harder for it.
Definitely. And I think with the 80s and 90s, particularly with like live music, is back then you would go out. You'd be like, oh, it's the weekend. Oh, where are we going? Let's go see some live music. But now you can, and you would go and see a band who maybe you didn't know, or you only knew one of their songs and you'd watch the whole show, or like you would allow yourself to trust the performer to entertain you. Whereas now you can stay home and type in exactly what you want to see at that moment and watch it for exactly as long as you want to watch it. Yeah. And then as soon as your interest wanes, you can watch something else. And you don't have to venture out. You don't have to leave your house to be entertained exactly how you want. And you will never be pushed out of your comfort zone or discover something that you didn't realise would entertain you. Yeah. Because you're not Googling it, you're not searching.
That's the funny thing, isn't it? That it's that thing of because the way the algorithm works, it's like, oh, you like that, we'll give you more of that.
So you will continue to like this.
So you don't get to find that there's this other thing over here that I didn't know anything about that you might have gone, oh my God, I love that.
Exactly.
But you'll never know about it.
No. Fun.
So you've got the two girls.
Yes.
And they're both doing different things musically.
Yes, so Miranda she's almost 11. She'll be 11 in March or so. Oh, so she's 10 and a half. And she plays the drums. She's been playing drums for 5 or 6 years. She's very good. She is also singing. Yeah, she's a really good little singer as well. Juliet, my younger one, she's just turned 8 and she is also starting to sing. And she has now been playing the piano for a year.
Wow.
And then they both do dancing and acro and musical theatre.
Okay. Would you – that's a busy life.
It's a very busy life, yes.
What advice would you give them if they said, I want to be a professional musician? What would be the one thing that you would – a bit of advice that you would pass on to them?
I don't know if I don't think they ever would ask me because I think they are seeing it. Oh, probably just don't be a dickhead. Like just be a nice person and be like, don't be a pushover, but just don't burn bridges.
Try not to let people make you into something that you're not.
Yes, but also, and just recognise that it is a business also. So have your wits about you and don't it would be the worst thing if they were to be taken advantage of in some way or not be, treated right. But I would also say make sure people know that you're good because you're good, not because your mummy's a musician. Like I always try to instill that in them, that your talent and your skill is not something you inherited.
It's something you've cultivated.
It's something
yourself.
that you've done, and that's really special.
Is there any particular piece of advice that you've gotten from your dad or your uncle that really stuck with you? Or your mum, for that matter, because she was an interesting person, business-wise.
It's funny, I don't think... Oh, my mum would have given me tons of advice over the years. I don't think I would have gotten a great deal of advice from Dad or Tommy, really, other than probably just be yourself, which is very valuable. But, yeah, my mum's advice was more just like just do whatever you want and basically. Yeah, which that was probably hers. But no, I would say for me, the stuff I learnt from my parents wasn't so much verbal. Mm-hmm. It was more seeing their actions and going, hey, I want to do that, or going, probably won't do that. And yeah, learning from their life experiences and how they handled themselves in certain situations. My mum is like a bloody hero to me because I saw, and it's funny to look back on it now, but when I was younger, you know, like when my mum left my dad, it was very much framed as my mum left my dad, so mum's a bitch and poor dad. And then later in life it was kind of like, oh, I know why mum left dad now. And yeah, the way you sort of reframe things in your mind and realize, well, that woman left a relationship that she'd been trying to get out of for a long time, but she was stuck in because she had 4 young kids and no prospects of her own because she had to stay home with 4 young kids. So she's been like, you know, married to a musician, so hasn't got, like, for her to leave was really, really difficult, just logistically, because
she was a very strong woman.
Very strong woman, yeah, exactly. And then built up from literally nothing to becoming like a really successful businesswoman, owning her own business in a completely different field, which is so cool. And so the second half of her life was so inspirational to me, and she was my hero in that way. And I think it's interesting because I've got the influence of the music industry, which I've obviously seen with Dad and Tommy and everything like that.
You've done some gigs and toured a little bit with your
with your
Dad and with Tommy.
Exactly. Again, another gig that I wasn't good enough to have. You know, like another gig that I got by default.
There's no such thing.
No, mate, I toured the country singing my little bullshit songs. Just because, again, I was an Emmanuel and there was something special about...
It would have been something special to be able to share the stage with your dad.
Oh, it was very special for me.
Yeah.
I just mean like, oh, God, just the calibre of other artists who I would have been pushed ahead of.
Yeah, but still...
No, I know. I'm just being hypercritical, but I know that if I were to get a gig of that size, an opportunity of that size now... I would nail it.
Yeah.
I'd be amazing. But back then I was just like, I'm great. Like fucking whatever. Like I wrote my little songy songs about my little boyfriend. Yeah. But yes, I learned a lot about the actual industry and how it all works. And
witnessing what it was like to be on the road with your dad and with Tommy, because they're very different people.
Yes.
Tommy and your dad.
Certainly now.
Tommy's a Gemini.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess you have that in common.
Yes.
I mean, I spent a couple of years working with your dad and I learnt a lot. He was a very inspirational musician, but he wasn't a great business person.
No.
And he certainly had...
I don't think he wanted to be, though.
No, I don't think he wanted to be either. But it was also one of those... It was an interesting thing because...
I don't think he aspired to be... Like, I think he just was really happy doing the type of gigs and the type of business that he was doing. And he had no great big aspirations to become a big world star or whatever, the way that like Tommy probably did.
Yeah, they're very different people in that respect.
Yeah.
Very different people.
Absolutely.
So what's on the agenda for you now, and where do you see things going in the next 5 to 10 years for you?
That is a good question. Very good. It's funny, in previous years, I wouldn't have had any sort of a plan. It would have just been work hard, play hard, just, you know, do all the gigs and have fun with it and whatever. But as we were saying about COVID being a really good reset, once things started to come back, I realised I didn't want to work like that. I wanted to work smarter, not harder. So I still want to do gigs as much as I can, but I also want to focus on my family business. So my husband, obviously being a builder, I'm now a big part of that business as well. I help take care of the admin and stuff like that, you know, the Monday to Friday type stuff.
How many people working in the business?
8 or something.
That's a fair few. That's a few people. That's a few people to look after.
I think, I'm not sure. A couple of apprentices, subbies, yeah. But it is a
big thing.
multi-million-dollar like turnover company that has grown, and it's had the opportunity to grow because during COVID, when I wasn't working so hard, Kurt had an opportunity, because the building industry didn't stop, of course. Yeah, Kurt had an opportunity to essentially absorb the business that he was working for as a subcontractor, because that guy wanted out. So it was a big, okay, we're going to jump into this and take on these guys and take on these jobs and these clients and everything. But he needed my help and support. And at the time I was kind of like, well, you know, every now and then I book a gig and then it gets cancelled and whatever. So I was just like, whatever, yep, let's do it. And thankfully it's been really successful in that way. And now, of course, everything's back gung-ho, you know.
So it's a juggling act for you.
It's very much a juggling act. So it's either like Monday to Friday I'm the mum taxi for all those various activities, dancing and instruments and singing and musical theatre and whatever else. So I'm the taxi for that, and also food on the table and trying to maintain a household and all that stuff.
Help manage a business.
Help manage a multi-million-dollar business. And then on the weekend, go and do some gigs. So it's gotten to a point now where 5 years ago I would have said my 5 to 10 year plan was to just keep going hard, keep singing, keep writing, keep at it, keep all those things. And now I've gotten to a point where there was too much and I've had to go, no, I will no longer do that. I will no longer do that. I will no do like. It's kind of a way of saying, like, I don't want to say trim the fat, but there's just certain gigs that I've grown out of now. So gigs that, you know, don't necessarily pay as much or the conditions aren't as good. And 10 years ago I would have gone, oh, well, it's a good opportunity, and blah, blah, blah. But I don't need the opportunities anymore. I've built the relationships. Everybody in the industry knows who I am and what I can do and what I bring, and I'm easy to work with and whatever. There are so many people in our industry who are so incredibly talented and offer something so special but are so difficult to work with that they lose the gig because people are like, well, fuck, you're really good.
I think I've been that person probably at times.
Yeah, we all have. But yeah, it's important. Like, your reputation is really important because there'll be gigs that you get just by word of mouth. Yep. Just you know, true. Somebody just randomly needs somebody to be a singer or whatever, and somebody will go, oh, you know, use Jessie, she's really good or whatever, and you'll get that gig because somebody else will vouch for you. And if nobody's going to vouch for you, even if you're amazing, you're not going to get the gig. So yeah, my long story short is my 5 to 10 year plan is to continue gigging at this much more manageable level, because the juggling is fine. as long as you keep all the balls in the air, obviously. But yeah, I'm able to go to all the kids' concerts and all those things.
So you don't feel like you're missing out on any of the special moments? I know that's one of those
right.
things that
And
was for me. I've missed
yeah.
a lot of, I think most musos are in that position where they miss a lot of family events.
Yeah. And my dad, because he was a working musician, he'd be away for weeks at a time. And Dad, do
you any hold any grudges against him because of that, do you think?
That's a complicated question.
I know it is a complicated question with him because he was a complex person.
A very complex person. I think he was a really nice guy, super, super talented. All I ever hear is how amazing and kind and wonderful he was, and everybody is always...
He was a great hang.
Yeah, great hang.
Great
Right?
storyteller.
Exactly.
Loved telling a joke.
Exactly. But when it came to the deeper stuff, the family, the responsibilities, not great.
Yeah.
And that was what was important to me as a child. So for me with my kids, probably not as good a hang.
Yeah, I guess it's that thing. I mean,
I just
he
want to
had
make
certain
sure...
issues with alcohol too.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And look...
Which I don't think to be fair, I know from being around him, everywhere we went, everyone wanted to buy him drinks.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to say, no.
Yes.
I
best not.
Everyone wants to be your mate and everyone wants to buy you a drink.
And honestly, I think Dad was really happy with the lifestyle that he'd created for himself. I think he loved that. I think him turning up to a random pub in the middle of nowhere and people knowing who he was and having a yarn and talking about snakes and whatever and having free piss and all that sort of stuff. Sounds like a pretty great fucking life to me. Meanwhile, you've got 4 children at home in one house, and then you've got other children speckled around the country.
Wow.
Well, we don't need to know about that.
No.
But yeah, no, I
did any of his quirks for like of snakes, was that something that you took on?
No, not really. I love animals in general.
Pets?
Yeah, I've got two dogs and a cat, and just normal pets though. Like, we grew up with snakes and lizards and rabbits and like guinea pigs, and we always had a whole bunch of pets. And there was something horrifying about getting attached to a certain pet and then seeing it get killed to feed another pet. But my little brother Marshall, is obsessed.
Oh, he loves.
He's got
the
pet
snake bug?
snakes. He goes hunting for snakes and all that sort
wow.
of stuff. Yeah. So it has, but yeah, I certainly love animals, but not like that. Yeah. Not those ones. Snakes can stay outside. That's fine. We did have pet snakes for a while, but they're just hard work.
Any new original songs on the horizon?
No. I could only ever do it, in a band or something again. I couldn't do it by myself. I can't let myself become that vulnerable.
Okay.
To be the sole person, the sole storyteller, because I write quite personally a lot of the time, and I need to share it with somebody. I need the song to not be a diary entry.
Feels like it's more of a safer space
a musical project, I guess. And I don't know. I won't rule it out, but I can tell you I haven't written a song since I wrote a really personal song about 2 years ago today. Mm-hmm. And that ended up being the last song we recorded. It was our second last single, came out in May last year. And it was a song that it very much should have been just a me song. Like, it's very personal.
Are you proud of the song?
I'm super proud of the song. Super, super proud of the song. I love it. It's so it's called Fragile, and it's all about, it's a lot about the stuff that we've sort of talked about today. Particularly like my struggling to comprehend or balance my childhood and my upbringing and how that's going to affect me now later in life. And I don't know. It's a really good song that I'm really, really proud of. And it's musically beautiful and I was so proud of it. And it went nowhere. Like
it doesn't have to. I'll put all the links for Hinterland down below and for Jessie's stuff. And people can leave comments and
yeah, tell me how great it is, obviously. No, I think honestly there is something rather humbling about putting all your being, like that's the one time I was truly vulnerable as a writer.
I think it's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
It's cathartic.
Oh, absolutely. But then it's hard to see something that you've put, not even just
Does it still
so
feel a
much
bit raw?
hard. Yeah, 100%. I heard the song came up on Spotify the other day, like in a mix or something, and I was like, I can't believe I actually said all those things in a recording. I was just like, oh my God.
The other thing too, you got to realise too, it's a moment in time.
Oh, 100%. No, but I listen to it now and I'm just like, oh my God, like that's so, like I'm so proud of it.
Yeah.
But there is something really hard about putting so much of yourself into something, working really, really hard on it, putting money into it. I don't know. I don't know what I expected because it is a very strange song with a very unique sort of sound and a unique tone and message and everything. But yeah, I think once I wrote that, I was like so proud of it. And then when that didn't really go anywhere, I just kind of thought, oh, like I think I'm done.
Maybe it's timing.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it was also at a point where it's not the song itself. It's not the song itself. By the time we released the song, we'd already decided we were done.
Oh.
We all just collectively were like, is this not fun anymore? Because I'm not having fun. And then everyone else was like, yeah, I'm not having fun either. So we were like, oh, great. Like it was good. But then it was like, all right, but we still had a couple songs to roll out that we'd already recorded. So we was just like, okay, cool. Let's put these, go through
the motions.
So
and
by
get
the
stuff
time
out
we
there.
announced our like breakup, which I think was like the start of this year, we had already been broken up for like 8 or 9 months and rolled out 2 singles.
Okay.
But yes, and not in a negative way. Just honestly, we were all just like, we've all worked really, really hard for a long time. Well, not that long actually, only like 3 years, but really, really hard for 3 years, taken a few huge swings, made some amazing music. But everyone had sort of just lost the drive to do it, which is so normal. And I would never rule out, I wouldn't rule out that we won't do it again. We might. But it's just I wouldn't do anything by myself. I think Rachel and Rob are working on solo stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, Rob is consistently doing new things. And
Yeah.
He's been out touring the world, doing a Tina Turner show.
Tina Turner show. And Rachel and I still work together all the time. Like there's absolutely no...
And Rachel's out doing gigs with Troy, with James Johnson.
Yes, correct. Yep. Yeah, because too much of the business got involved. We had a manager and it was...
A lot of mouths to feed.
It wasn't the mouths to feed. It was just the bullshit machine, really. At one point we had a song... We had a song that we had worked so hard on and is so musically complicated, yet on the surface kind of sounds simple and sing along and whatever. But like it's one of the songs I liked the most because I was like, man, there's a C major, a C sharp minor and a C sharp major in this one song and it all works because of the way we put it together. And it's just cool. Like I love that shit. And I just remember just being like, this is so cool. And we had just worked so hard on this one song. And we'd made a video too. We'd gone to so much trouble to make a music video because it was during lockdowns and stuff like that. So we went to so much trouble and got this video together. And it was like, we have this banging song, banging video, and then sent it off to our like team, our people. And one of the responses we got was, can you come up with like a TikTok trend for this where, because it's called Giddy Up, like, I don't know, you like have like a broom and you like play the song and then you pretend to ride a horse, but it's a broom. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, I know.
I just remember just being like,
make something go viral on TikTok.
exactly. That's just where the industry was. Like that manager wasn't saying something that every other manager and every other person trying to make it was doing or trying to say, but it was just like, it was kind of like, oh, it's not really about the music anymore, is it? It's possibly our fault that when we started Hinterland, it was, oh, it's just going to be about the music. It's just going to be about the music. And then it just gradually stopped being about the music. But although it was still for us, but because the music business is a business.
I guess that's the thing. You have to remember at the end of the day,
it is
a business.
I shouldn't then be sad when a song doesn't go viral or doesn't, like, because I didn't do the business part of it. So the business, the pretending to ride a broom and it's a horse to go viral. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if that necessarily would have worked in your favour.
It absolutely would not have.
Yeah.
No, it was just a suggestion too. It was like, oh, maybe this. And I was just like, no. I was like, what about a video of us like performing it in like a really high quality, expensive environment, performing it, a music video?
Things go viral and people have no idea why. You
can't predict
manufacture it.
I think at the time the most viral thing at that moment was like the dude who was like listening to Fleetwood Mac riding a skateboard or something and drinking juice or something.
Cranberry juice.
And you're like, why?
Yeah, like
people are expected so much authenticity and to be invited into the personal lives of an artist and stuff like that. But yeah, that's something that I just can't. I'm like, no. Yeah, no, I think it's horrible. I think an artist should be able to be an artist and then go away and just
have a personal life that's personal.
Yes, they should be able to go out there and do that. And I think that's why I've just tried so hard, to keep them separate. Yeah. Because, it
brings us perfectly back where we started.
Yes, that was quite a good circle, wasn't it? Oh, my God.
Thank you very much, Jessie, for spending some time with me today.
Thank you so much.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's something there for everyone.
Yes, you give them all the links and we'll go viral.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Hope we see you on the next one. Bye.